Also keeping an eye on Alibaba this morning after its public debut on Friday. It's down quite a bit this morning, actually, more than 3%, broke below 90 bucks a share earlier this hour. Let's take a closer look at what this IPO means for the tech sector at large. Venky Ganesan is a managing director with Menlo Ventures. Venky, thanks for joining us. When I saw you a couple months ago, we were talking about the IPO market, the big ones that were coming down the pike, and how that might affect the outlook for a lot of the companies you've got on deck and others in the Valley ready to go public. How does it affect the outlook and the plans, the IPO window right now?
Look, I think the Alibaba IPO is a watershed moment, and what it does is open up, just like the Facebook IPO, opportunity for a lot of IPOs to go out. There's a bunch of companies on file, including some in our own portfolio, and we're very excited for the second half of the year.
Venky, I want to bring up a Bill Gurley quote from just a few days ago. He talked about the risk that a lot of companies are taking in the market, saying in Silicon Valley as a whole, the venture capital community, startup community, taking an excessive amount of risk right now, unprecedented since '99. Is that true in your view?
John, one of the nice things about being in a firm that's been around for 38 years is that we have backed over 400 companies across, multiple up cycles and down cycle. And while we are in an up cycle, we are nowhere close to the top. I think what's going on is more like a block party than a citywide party. There are pockets of irrational exuberance, but for the most part, I think it's actually fine.
Venky, you compete with benchmark capital, and whenever I see a venture capitalist talk about prices being higher, prices being low, there's a little bit of a flanking move or a motivation going on there. I mean, benchmark's got their stakes in the stuff that they want. They're an Uber. How much do you view this as competition, him just putting that out there?
Well, asking a venture capitalist about valuation is like asking a barber whether you need a haircut. Don't be surprised at the answer if they say it's too high. Now, what I'll tell you, and this is really interesting, is that after 18 years of doing business in Silicon Valley, I realized that it's not money, it's not greed, it's not love that motivates people, but it's FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I think what happens here is that if you are not in Uber or Machine Zone or one of the hot companies, I think venture capitalists feel the need to compete and be in there, and I think Bill is trying to tamp that down.
Venky, it's somewhat ironic to see comments from VCs talking about how valuations are so high, because this time around, a lot of these companies aren't going public. So if the bubble does pop, if that silliness does end up ending, then it's really the portfolio managers who are going to end up with a lot of goodwill that they're going to need to take on some of these investments. So how are you guys hedging, and how are you guys preparing to make sure that you don't get hurt when this eventually stops?
Well, what I've learned in venture capital is the best way to minimize the downside in a down cycle is to extract all the upside in an up cycle. And so what we are doing is continuing to make our companies grow. We have had a few companies that have grown 300x in the last 24 months, and we are trying to make sure that they build sustainable businesses, because we know the party will end. I don't know when, but it will. And when it ends, the people who are prepared. So as I say, it's not about predicting rain, it's about building an ark.
All right. Well, Venky, thanks for that perspective. Real quick, what's your thought of that 10 million first weekend number on iPhone? Are you impressed? You surprised?
I'm very impressed. I think they've got the size right, and I think Apple Pay is a killer feature. I think Apple is back, and don't underestimate the iWatch either.
All right. I think you'll be buying one, Kayla.
I think it sounds like it. Thank you so much, Venky, and thank you, John, for bringing us that interview.